Good morning, everybody. Can you see my presentation here?
Yes.
Perfect. So what we're going through today is I did up a presentation talking about how I consistently turn all those renter leads that we have that come into us. They're amazing. They can be amazing if you look at them in the right light. And I'm talking today about how I consistently turn those tenants into buyer leads, right? And obviously, who wouldn't want more buyer leads? So it's pretty good. So diving through. I have a quick overview of what we're talking about today. So, like I said, we're talking about how I consistently turn rental leads into buyer leads. We're going to go through my tips, tricks, and scripting around what I do and how I convert at a high level through this. I'm going to give you a step-by-step walkthrough of what this looks like in practice. I'm going to throw out some alternative options that people might not be fully aware of, and then we're going to end it off with a Q&A. So here I wanted to give an example. These are two deals I did in the last year that they were specifically from this exact strategy. They were from people who initially came to me looking to rent, and after reviewing their information, we thought of creative ways to get them into the market so they didn't have to rent anymore. So
Interesting.
the people on the left there, they came in as friends of mine. They bought in Innisfil, that awesome little place. They were looking to rent, and after looking at their information, we talked about it. They were under the common misconception that people have that you need a minimum of 20% down to buy. So after talking to them, they bought conventionally and they bought a home. The people on the right were a little more complicated. We ended up having to go through the rent to own program to get them that home, but again, that's another deal in a client for life that I made through looking at them as more than just a potential tenant that came into me. So when a tenant lead comes in, obviously we start to ask verbal questions. We get a ballpark idea of who this person is and if we can help them. Because as we know, sometimes if they don't show the best on paper, they might be better off applying directly if they're only looking for a rental. So if the tenant's qualified, I threw our script in here that we have as a team. This is the script that we send via email. I use Miriam came up with it, and I think it's genius. It asks for the 5 key things that we need when applying for a rental so that we already have them in hand. And just so we're prepared, as well as so we can pre-qualify them to make sure they're using us is going to be their best option because we always want to put the client first. And honestly, if they have a 600 credit score, they don't look great on paper. So it would be better for them to apply directly to the landlord so they see them as more than just numbers on paper. They see them as a person, right? So once I get these documents back, I like to assess things. I like to see where they stand and try to place them into different boxes. So, do they have good income? Do they have like over 100,000 household income for a year? Are they self-employed? Could that be a reason why they're renting? Do they just not have the recent tax returns to support a mortgage? Do they have bad credit? Do they have past insolvency or bankruptcy with less than 4 years remaining? Um, One thing that I find that is a good differentiation is are they offering months, like paying months up front on a rental? Are they offering to pay 3, 4 months up front? Because if they are, that could potentially be a home down payment if you're looking at it in the right light. At a very minimum, if they don't have any of those things, if they are just going to be a great tenant, are they at the very minimum a coachable client that we can work with and potentially help them in the future? So they kind of have a couple different road paths here. Once we assess them, obviously there's many reasons why they would want to rent. Maybe they don't want to set down roots
Hi
yet.
there, what
Maybe
do you
they're
have
just
today?
getting into the
Hi there. I
market.
came through the drive-through not long ago.
Sorry about that. So maybe there's many reasons why they could be wanting to rent, and renting is great. But would they consider buying if someone gave them the route to buy? That's kind of the key question you need to ask at this time, right? So on the right here, I have their 3 options if they wanted to purchase. Those are kind of the 3 main options. Obviously, conventional buying is always the best. If you don't have to deal with any of the programs, if you can just buy in, it's always the best. Sometimes they come to you and they can be that way. More often than not, though, they're looking at the other programs. Shared equity buyer, we're going to dive into that, as well as rent to own tenants. They're great. Rent to own is an awesome program, but it's only awesome for the people that need it. If you have a buyer that could conventionally buy or could be a shared equity buyer within the next 6 months to a year, I'd say they're better off going that route. But rent to own's a great system for the people that need it. So a conventional buyer, obviously, when they come in, they have that good income, they have that good down payment already above 5%, and they have a good credit. if they are looking like that and they'd consider buying, get them to a mortgage professional right away. That's what happened with that one example I shared in the beginning. They had I think it was around 10% down saved up. It was in a competitive market and they were offering to pay a couple months up front. So we talked about their options. They went to Steph, they got pre-approved, and they bought conventionally. Now, more often than not, we start to see the shared equity come into play or a rent to own program. So I'm going to go through the three key shared equity programs that we see most often. The Simcoe Homebuyer Program, that's a unique one that a lot of people don't know even exists. There's the Place to Call Home Federal Program, and then the Shared Equity Partner. So going into each option there, the federal program, the Place to Call Home, is great. You can get up to 5% of resale or 10% down payment assistance for new construction. They have to have a maximum household income of $150,000. The maximum purchase price, note maximum, is 4.5 times their gross income. So if they have the maximum household income, would be 675. A little tighter in today's market for some of these homes, but doable. The catch with this is the homeowner they repay the same percentile that they borrow. So if they borrow 5% and let's say they go to sell it in 10 years, they have to repay a percent of the ownership on the property up to 8%. And they also share in a loss up to 8%. You can dive into these programs. I just wanted to give you kind of a brief overview. There's no payments or interest as well. So every month they're just paying their mortgage. And when it comes time to sell or refinance, that's when they'd have to pay the program out. The Affordable Home Ownership Program. This is a cool one for Simcoe. So anyone that lives in Simcoe or deals in Simcoe, you should know about this. So this program's only available for people that are currently renting in Simcoe County. Now, a lot of us, when we think about Simcoe County, we think Innisfil, Barrie, but that also includes Bradford. It includes New Tecumseh, Alliston, Beaton, all those pockets that are a lot farther south than you'd expect. So the qualification for this is that the renter must live in a separate rental unit that will be available for rent after they vacate. The whole idea of this program is that they're freeing up rental inventory by helping people step into home ownership. The maximum purchase price, so again, maximum is that exact number, $593,879 as of this year. It's hard, but it's doable. They can get up to 10% down payment grant up to a maximum of $50,000. So obviously, if they're purchasing for the maximum amount, they'd get $50,000. That doesn't equal 10%, but for a lesser amount, it would be 10%. The maximum household income has to be $103,000 or less. The personal assets of the individual applying has to be under $20,000. And there is, again, no interest or payments. If they sell under 20 years, they repay the same percentile that they borrow. So let's say they borrow 10%, they sell in 5 years' time, they repay 10% of the home's ownership. So again, you're co-buying essentially. But the cool thing with this program is if they live in Simcoe County and they own that house for over 20 years, there's no repayment. The loan is null and void. It's just given to them. So it's a very cool program. The catch with this one, though, there's a waiting list. So you need to apply. It takes time for it to become your turn. I believe I had someone go through this program. It was like 9 months or so. It can take a long time. It depends on the ups and downs of market, how many people are on the list. Once it's your turn, you have 60 days to put something under contract. So you have 60 days to put something under an agreement in purchase and sale. It does not mean it needs to close within 60 days. So pretty cool program. And don't feel like you need to take down all these notes because we will send out this presentation. I'm happy to share this with any of you guys. Just kind of gives you all the information in one handy spot. The third one is something we've talked about with Steph a couple times, is the shared equity partner. So again, it's a pretty cool program. The difference with this is it looks at minimums instead of maximums. The minimum purchase price is $550,000. The minimum deposit that the buyer needs to have is 5% down. The equity partner can contribute up to 15%. They could cover all Treb regions, which is quite a vast area now, including down towards like Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, all those areas. The cool thing with this is obviously it eliminates the high ratio mortgage insurance and it expands your amortization up to 30 years. So it lessens your monthly payment. But again, the catch with this is, well, first of all, there's no interest payments. Same with these other programs. It's a repayment of percentage when you sell. But the catch with this one is, well, really, there's not much of a catch. It's just that you're repaying the percentile that you are borrowing in the beginning. So if you're borrowing 5% of the home's worth in the beginning, you're repaying 5% of the home's worth when you're selling it. It's just like buying with a friend, except these guys have no say and they don't go on title as a mortgage. The final option the candidates would have would be rent to own. So when I have tenants come into me and I'm assessing their information, an ideal rent to own tenant is someone that has bruised credit and they can't go through credit repair over the next year and fix it. If they have like a 400 or 500 credit score, they can still buy through rent to own. They do still need to have a deposit though. That's a common misconception with rent to own. They do need 4 to 5% down to put towards the loan because they have to have some skin in the game. Their income needs to support purchasing, obviously, because the whole idea with rent to own is that someone's buying this home for you now, and then you are going to be buying them out in 2 years' time, kind of thing. So your income does still need to support that mortgage so that you can, in the future, buy them out potentially. Perfect candidates could be someone with some like that has a past insolvency. If they're self-employed, that's what my example was in the beginning. Those guys owned a very large business, and just like any of us business owners, they didn't claim much of their income. They wrote down their income, and that's great for saving on taxes, but it's not really great for when you're applying for a mortgage. So they would have needed to wait 2 years to get into the market, providing two good tax returns to conventionally qualify. Whereas with rent to own, they could get in the door sooner. They bought early, I think it was, I don't know, sometime last year, and they've done okay on the house. It's going to likely appreciate over the next 4 years through their rent to own cycle, and they got in the door. They now own a home. They don't have to keep being bounced around. Two other good uses for rent to own is if someone's new to Canada, if they're waiting for their permanent residency, that is someone who can rent to own. If they have a consumer proposal with 48 months or less remaining, that is also someone who can use rent to own. So again, those are people that would not conventionally qualify, but if they're adamant, they want to buy, they have the 4 to 5% down, and they have the income to support purchasing, there are options for them. So how we do rent to own on our team here, obviously we align ourselves with Clover Properties. They're great. When you are connecting them with Clover Properties, there's three key questions that you need to know the answer to. Where are they looking to buy geographically? What is their annual household income? And what is their down payment? And remember, they must still have 4 to 5% of list price. So if they have $5,000, it's likely not going to be a good option for them still. And yeah, once you connect them with their team, they take over, they nurture them, they qualify them just like any kind of mortgage broker. They go through documents and they give them a purchase price, and then you can get out shopping eventually. The final option is to stay a renter, but if they have aspirations to buy, we obviously connect ourselves with Steph and Christina. They are great for if you have someone like this, send them over to them. They will go through all of these programs I just mentioned. They will explain their options. They will look at where your tenant sits now and what they should be doing over the next 2, 3 years, even 6 months, just to consolidate debt, pay off loans, maybe save up some more money, maybe switch jobs and get a better income. It's great for us because it allows us to nurture people and help them. And I mean, sending them to our mortgage broker, it's a great way to help each other because the mortgage broker wants to nurture them and turn them into a deal just as much as we want to nurture them and turn them into a deal. So it's a great way to work together to do more deals. Obviously, we know the answer to this one. Why now? Why buy instead of renting? Renting, no matter what market you're in, it's always 100% interest. There is never equity building in your home. A lot of people, they get bounced around from rentals to rentals. Landlords need to sell, they want to move in, whatever. They get bounced around between houses, and this is a good option for them to finally set down roots and have their own home, right? The benefit to us in following this kind of system and looking at tenants as more than just tenants, trying to help them and see beyond just what they're looking to do right now is that we get to do more deals, which is great for us, obviously. But more importantly than all of that, we have clients for life. So those clients that I referenced, the $880,000 purchase in Keswick, they were a rent to own buyer. They were going to rent. We chatted about it. They bought. And long story short, they just referred me their son. Their son has a $900,000 house to sell and an $800,000 or so buy side. So that's an additional what 1.6 1.7 million in transactions that I'm getting out of this just helping somebody. And I do it because I like helping people, but if you help people, you create those clients for life. They are the multipliers that we always look for in our business that are going to send us referrals and help us build a bigger business, right? So my closing comments for all of this is when you go and beyond in your when you go above and beyond in your service to your clients, you don't just have clients. Like I was saying, you have clients for life. You have those multipliers that are going to send you back deals. They are the people that if anyone asks who the best realtor in the area is, they're going to scream your name from the top of the mountaintop. So you want to help people beyond just what they're looking for. Um, these are people that will send you tons of referrals, like I was saying, and they're going to make sure everyone knows how awesome you are. And it's a compound effect. So remember, the average homeowner, they move every 7 years. So these people that you're helping now, in 5, 6 years, they might turn into another deal. They might turn into a sell and a buy. So when you're setting down these routes and helping people get into ownership, it can turn into a lot more than just one small transaction. You have to look at the big picture here. That's kind of it from me. That's kind of my system where I get the information in, I look at their information, and I have that discussion with them if they look good. If they look like they could be a potential rent to own candidate, they could be a potential shared equity candidate, I talk with them about it. The nice thing we have at our access now is we have Steph and Christina's new program where they essentially do exactly what I just told you, all for us. So if you have someone that you look at their information and you think this could be a potential fit for the tenant to buyer program that Steph and Christina are now hosting, you can connect them directly with our mortgage brokers and they will go through all of this information. They will see which program would be the best fit for them. And if there's no program that's a good fit for them now, they talk about what they can do over the next couple years or even, like I said, 6 months to make improvements and buy on a sooner timeline. So, yeah, that's it for me. Does anyone have any questions about any of the information I shared?
Hi, Jake. I have a quick question.
Yeah, of course.
When we're sending over a referral for like a mortgage agent, do we still have to do three or can we connect them directly
Yeah,
to?
so the conversation I normally have, I tell them, yes, we can send over three, and here's a I give them an example of here's what Steph and Christina do. I always send three through email so they have their clear choice of who they want to work with. But I'm honest and I tell them what their offerings are. Steph and Christina, they do have this tenant to buyer program where they might be a good fit for it. And I make sure they're aware of that. So they're making an educated choice in who they're working with. But yes, we are obligated to send over three options for them to choose from. So they're making their own decision on who they're working with. Perfect. Anyone have any other questions?
I do, Jake.
Sure.
So I have a friend, she's in my sphere and she's had an inheritance and she's wanting to buy. I'm just wondering like how often I should be touching on her because I kind of get that feeling from her that she wants to, but she's scared to. So I've started sending her properties that I think are within her interests. I've gone through some needs and wants with her.
Hmm.
I sent her yesterday, actually, Steph's info and a couple other mortgage brokers because I know she was saying, I don't know what I qualify for. And I wanted to kind of just connect her with especially staff to see if
Hmm.
there's something to help with if they're doing or find that little bit of a push. But when you have somebody that's kind of sitting on the fence and they're nervous because they've been renting their whole life, is there any tips that you have in terms of that and how much I should be kind of pushing her? Because I don't want to scare her away from it.
Yeah.
To
For sure. And it is a fine line, right? Like you don't want to push too hard. You want to give them the options that are in front of them. And you want to explain to her, like, okay, let's say you continue renting. You continue renting for the next 3, 4 years. You're paying 100% interest. All your payments are going directly to your landlord. That's okay. Is your goal, though, to set down roots? Do you want to buy your own home? Do you want to be able to renovate your home and make it yours to live in? You talk with her about that. And I think the best step, like you said, was connecting her with Steph and Christina so that she can get a ballpark idea of what she can afford and how much it's going to cost her monthly, right? Because that's the biggest thing. How much is this going to cost her monthly to have a mortgage? Is it going to be substantially more than renting? Is it going to be comparable with how much she's putting down? That's a good kind of, I always stress it as a no obligation. Just have this fact finding call with Steph and Christina so you can get an idea of where you stand, how much it's going to cost you, and then you can make an educated decision on if you want to buy now, if you want to wait and save up more money, what that looks like and why, right? Because they're great at converting them, but it's just making sure she's making an educated decision, right? You want to help your friend to make an educated decision. Doesn't matter if she buys now or if it's in 2 years, 3 years. as long as you keep that relationship, follow up with her, and help her make her decision, she's going to be a client eventually. But yeah, that's what I would do. Just connect them with Steph and Christina, have that no obligation conversation. They do a great job in converting leads as well, where they'll talk about why buying now is great and it's coming from a third party as well. Of course. Perfect. Well, I guess that's it. If anyone has any other questions, you know where to find me. I have this presentation. I'm happy to share it with anybody. So if anybody wants this presentation, so you have kind of a hit list of the options that a tenant has, reach out to me. I'm happy to share it. It just puts it all in one convenient place. And remember, Steph and Christina now have a system to where we don't necessarily need to do all this extra work. If you have a tenant that comes into you, start the conversation, and if they look like they could be a good fit, you can connect them with our mortgage brokers and they'll do all this work for you.